You're listening to the Fusion Patrol Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fusion Patrol. I'm Eugene.
And I'm Ben, who's making funny faces.
And we're recording episode 28 of Fusion Patrol. Tonight we're going to be talking about the classic television series, The Starlost. And we'll be looking at episode 3, entitled The Goddess Calabra, by, I'm told, Ursula Le Guin. Le Guin, is that how it's pronounced?
I think that's how it's pronounced.
That's how I've always pronounced it. As a brief synopsis of this episode, our heroes arrive in a new dome, and in this dome, they find a society dominated by men. Well, dominated's not quite the right word. It's entirely men. For hundreds of years, only men. And they are shocked by Rachel. They mistake her for a goddess. They get into a bunch of fun misadventures, and we get to see another fascinating slice of life on one of the domes of the Ark. So let's just plow right into this one and say, what did you think of this one, Ben?
Oh, this one was laughable. Totally. I mean, right from the very, very beginning.
Did you hear the tiki-taki music this time? I seem to recall you didn't notice the music, but this time
I wasn't paying really much attention to the music.
That music drives me nuts, and it starts this episode off with it's like...
I'll have to watch it again just for that now.
Yeah, fortunately, you only have to watch the first 5 minutes to hear it, and then you'll never miss it again whenever it pops up in the show. So, I noticed they've got a chart this time. They're carrying a map. It looks like a big blueprint. He's carrying a map. And they also call this dome by name. I think it's Omicron.
Omicron.
Although it's unclear where he got that name. Unless it was on the door or something when they walked in.
Unless it's on the chart?
Yeah, maybe it's on the chart. Maybe it's unclear why they're going here. If you'll recall in the last episode, they did revive that scientist who said, "Oh, there's probably some maps and you can go find."
That's simply what I assumed, that they were directed there. They thought this, based on what little information that they were given, that this seemed like the logical place to start off.
Yeah. So when they get there, they are captured by a group of guards, and when they see Rachel, they're all agog, and they get down on their knees and...
You're a woman!
A man. Yeah, I mean, they have trouble. They don't even know the word. It's so bad. And they take them before the governor, who is John Colicos in a that's unfair. John Colicos has been in so many different shows over the years that, it's unfair to say, hey, he's real Baltar from real Battlestar Galactica. But
well, you could say he's pre-Baltar, post-Commander Core from Star Trek.
Yeah, but, he's been in so many other shows. And a much, I'd say higher quality actor than this show deserves.
He is. I would agree.
Okay. And he... Well, I mean, we start off, you see him in his governor's room, and he's being entertained by his troupe of entertainers.
Court entertainers. I'm not quite sure what to call them. His court gymnasts? His court dancers? I don't know.
Yeah, that's not amusing. They were dancing, I think. He said, that's not amusing me. Try some calisthenics. And so then they do exercises for him. And of course, they're all men.
Yeah.
And it's all very...
I'll say it. I will say it. It at times it was what it could be almost considered homoerotic, but really badly done. I mean, it was like embarrassing to watch. Actually, well, not embarrassing. It was funny to watch. It was downright hysterical.
some might say uncomfortable, but no, it was weird. I mean,
it was very odd.
It was very odd, and so they bring them in, and I thought it was funny because he's like looking at Rachel really closely, and he's, the throat, and all the differences between her and the guys, and like I've never seen a woman before. And for all
he didn't go down,
and he didn't fondle her breasts. That is exactly what I was thinking. It's like, of all the things you could have checked to see why she was so much different, really, not the breasts.
Go there and then go one more place. There was no physical groping.
This is not padding like we do in the plays,
yeah.
and it was strange. Anyway, he explains how they have no women, that they were killed by a war, radiation, the accident.
It was some Holocaust.
Yeah, the Holocaust. It may very well have been the thing that damaged the Ark
and the ship in the first place. Yeah,
and so they lost all of the women, and they are now all born through incubation.
It's some sort of strange artificial fertilization process.
And they could make women, but they just don't want to.
Well, they claim they don't have that chromosome.
But he said something to the effect. He said, "Why can't we make the?" Because if you've men are XY, right? Women are XX.
XX.
So you should be more likely to be able to take chromosomes and build a woman than you are a man. And
True.
So, and he kind of addresses it. He says, we wonder why we didn't use our technology to make. Well, we don't want them. We don't want women. We're strong. We have a society built on manliness. They killed all the intellectuals. They sent them
almost all.
Well, for the most part, they got rid of the intellectuals. They didn't want them. And I just assumed that they got rid of the intellectuals because they wouldn't fall for the, oops, I dropped the soap in the shower trick. But, and they don't have, if you guys could see Ben's face right now, he has got such a grim sort of raised eyebrow, head shaking kind of. Incidentally, we are doing this via FaceTime instead of Skype because Skype is out tonight, so we're experimenting with a different technique. If the sound quality is a little bit different,
which means that we can see each other's faces while we're doing this in our respective homes.
Yeah, we don't usually do that on Skype just so that we don't psych each other out. But we are. But tonight we're kind of stuck with it. So let's see, what else have we got that was. There was not a whole lot here going. The governor wants to marry Rachel because everybody thinks she's a goddess because she happens to look like the one statue of a woman that they have in the whole place, the goddess Calabra.
Now, I want to
sort of looks like.
I want to ask you something about this. Now, I was watching this on a little tiny screen, and I imagine you probably saw this on your big television, or you watched it on your iPad.
I watched it driving down to Tucson the other day. Yeah.
Okay, so what
I was not driving.
No, you weren't driving.
I was passengering down to Tucson.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that appeared to me is that the statue of Calabra, it appeared to me on my little tiny screen that the bone structure, if you want to call it that, or the face of the statue, did bear a very striking resemblance to Rachel.
Yes. Yeah,
which I thought
was supposed to look like
really peculiar.
Yes.
And, of course, that's not addressed at all.
No, but, it does address how everybody thinks she's her. Look at the face. And even Rachel looks at it and she goes, wow, that's amazing. And
how is that possible?
If it just been a statue of a woman, then I don't think she would have said, how is that possible? But she did. So I think it was meant to be her.
Yeah, but, again, here's this. This is an amazing coincidence. The odds that they would have as the statue of their goddess to have a face that
looks like the first woman they've seen in 500 years.
Yeah, who comes from just as religiously superstitious a community. I thought was very, very peculiar, and for them to just not even address. Well, I imagine that
one could say it's sloppy or shortcut writing.
I think it was shortcut writing, and at the same time, I don't know if Ursula herself wrote all of the story or if this was an idea that was written by her and then someone adapted it. But in any case, whoever finally did the screenwriting or the screenplay for this episode, I kind of get the feeling they wrote themselves into a corner, and they came up with this great plot device. Oh, we'll have Rachel look like the statue. Oh crap! How do we explain it? Oh, I know. We won't.
Oh, I thought when you said great plot device, I thought you were talking about a dome that's all men. That makes perfect sense.
No, that's not a great plot device. That's just stupid.
That's as bad as the Man from Atlantis one, where they were fighting the generational war against their children.
Yeah.
It's like, I know who's going to win in this war. It's time.
Yeah. It doesn't work.
So the governor explains his point of view to them, or to Rachel anyway, who he doesn't believe is the goddess Calabra. He doesn't know what she is, but he doesn't believe that she's really the goddess. But he does know that in his world, the governor is the guy who can kill any challenger who wants to be governor. And right now, he is top dog and has been for some time. But he's getting older.
Klingon-like.
It's very Klingon-like. Maybe that's why they cast him. Anyway, he doesn't want to die, because that's the fate of ex-governors. You're dead. And he's getting old. He knows it. But he thinks if he marries Rachel, and everyone thinks Rachel's a goddess, he will become a god, and there will be no more challenges, and he will be governor forever, and...
Until he dies.
Until he dies of old age. And there's not really any indication that he's, shall we say, sexually attracted to Rachel. It's strictly a matter of politics.
At the beginning, it's strictly about just holding on to his life and to hold on to power. I mean, he's very power hungry. Okay, and
so here's the thing. We kind of mentioned this sort of gay vibe to it. It's about the best I can say. I mean, it's the guys dancing around, and maybe that's what you do, but it just has this sort of, let's do some cartwheels and wear tight outfits and curl, and Devin fits right in with that mustache in this place, and so it has this sort of, looking at it from 2010, looking at a 1970 show, to me, I could see how this is kind of a Russell T Davies vibe or something of that nature. But at the same time, when Rachel says something to the governor like, but what about love? Then the governor is all like, shh, don't mention that word.
That's a 4-letter word.
Don't mention that one. I'll forgive you, but we don't do that. That's definitely frowned on. And so my question is, when he says love, does he mean Romeo and Juliet love? Or does he mean Rumpy Pumpy? I mean, is he trying to say nobody here does anything nasty? We don't do that. Which would be personally kind of pushing that, I'm just telling you, we're not gay. Or is he saying that it's the emotion that they frown upon?
I kind of got the feeling he was talking about the emotion. I mean, it seemed the governor's not stupid,
right?
I mean, he's very cagey, and his morals are definitely very questionable, but he's not dumb, and he's a very perceptive man. And I'm pretty certain that when he heard Rachel ask the question, "What about love?" he firmly understood that she was referring to the emotional content. Not the sexual.
I kind of thought maybe that I'm trying to put myself in the place of 1973, which would have been with 9, and I wouldn't get that context if I had watched this when I was 9.
And that's a good point, because at that time, I think we were really getting to the height of the sexual revolution.
So they might have been...
it's very possible they may have been trying to push the envelope in some sort of a social way, in terms of a message.
Or trying to say, we're not talking gay. We don't do that. Don't think this dome full of men is doing stuff. This dome full of men has totally put aside all things like that. is kind of...
That could be too, because society still pretty much frowned. I mean, it's not like television today,
Right.
or like you pointed out, Russell T Davies. I mean, you look at Torchwood, and there's some pretty gay stuff that happens there. This is 1970 whatever, and it probably, even in Canada, was not socially acceptable. So maybe maybe you're right. Maybe they were talking about the sexual activity, and they were trying to nip that in the bud, so to speak.
He does say love was considered unnatural. His exact words, it's unnatural. So meantime, we should say that Garth and Devon, who, long hair and mustache, if we must, have been put away. They've been locked up. The governor wants to kill them.
Treated very well.
But treated very well because the goddess commands that they are treated very well. They're given lots of fruit and handmen to feed them if they want.
Your choice of words.
He called them
well,
handmen.
That's true.
The governor
It's true,
called them handmen.
And true. They were given, the food that they were given was fruits.
And it did look like, at one point Garth is like, feed me. And, he didn't quite put the grapes in his mouth, but it definitely was, like peeling the grape for him. It was all very Roman baths kind of thing, except they were wearing clothes.
Which makes this episode a very confusing one.
It does.
In that aspect.
Yes, it does. And so they escape by using a towel flick. Devon flicks the towel and gives him a good snap of his guard, and then they overpower them. And, well, they don't make handmen like they used to for guards. And then I believe they put all of the fruit on the floor and then called the guards who were outside the door in, and they all slipped on the apples and grapes and stuff and fell over and then were subdued.
Which are very easily seen. They're just... I guess I've never had anybody try to escape before, so they were totally clueless.
Totally clueless. Oh, I'm going to run across that fruit and slip and fall on my backside. It was terrible. It was a terrible plot device. So we have one more character we should introduce, and that is...
Shalif.
Shalif, that's it. Priesty guy. Priest. He is the high priest. He is an old friend or associate of the governor. But now they are somewhat more adversarial because he is the high priest and the keeper of the few remaining books, because along with the intellectuals, they burned all the books because...
That's the kind of thing you do.
That's a manly thing to do with a strong, powerful, manly society. We burn books. We don't read them. And but the priests keep the books. And, of course, they are the keeper of the faith of Calabra, who they think is the creator of the world. And, of course, Devon and Garth are trying to get to see the books, as is Rachel, but she's, busy with the governor teaching him about love. The books are, well, how useless. It's an interesting thing. At one point, Devon gets into the priest hole.
The temple, if you want to call it that.
Temple, that's it. That was it. The monastery, the temple, I think it's a temple. And he's given sanctuary by Shalif, who is played by Barry Morse. We should definitely mention that, because Barry Morse...
He was the best thing in this episode, and I mean that really highly. I really loved seeing him in this.
He was really a like John Colicos playing... He's another class actor above John Colicos, don't get me wrong.
I agree.
But, I mean, here's another jobbing actor. I mean, this is a guy that's been in so many shows over the years.
Yeah, for him to show up in a Starlost episode, I thought was... unless he was sold a complete bill of goods.
There's something Canadian about him. I mean, I don't know how to phrase that, but Barry Morse was born in Britain, and he died in Britain. But I know that he was in some way lived in Canada for a period of time in his life, which is where he acquired that sort of kind of American accent he's got. I mean, he for many years he would be used as an American in British TV shows. You'd see him in Barry Morse. But to our ears, Barry Morse kind of has a bit of a British accent.
It's a soft British accent.
It's a soft British accent, and you hear it. But I guess to the British, he sounds like he has a soft American accent. I'm not entirely sure, but he's often cast as an American. But I know that he was Canadian in some way, whether he lived there or had family there. He was the I can't think of his name, but I mean, he was the main bad guy, if you call him that, in The Fugitive. He was the detective that chased the fugitive all over the country. And, he was supposed to be just an American there. And you wouldn't be able to pass off a British guy as an American in that day and age. It's not like now with House, where people don't know Hugh Laurie is British, but
right.
He had a terrible part, but he put in such a good, honest, sincere performance. It was really good.
A very, very good performance. It was the only character. I mean, that was acting.
Yes, you could feel his conflictedness. Conflictedness? Am I doing it again with these words?
Yes, you are.
I am. Between his faith and the reality that Rachel was a human being, not a goddess, and yet he believed her to be a goddess in human form. I think that's how he was reconciling that in his mind.
Basically.
And at one point he explains how he's talking to the governor, his old friend, and he was explaining how the governor got him his job as the high priest, instilled him as the high priest.
Didn't he say he used to be a guard?
They used to be in the guards together or something like that. They were in the military together.
Right.
And he was put in for the priest as a political move, because that's the way the governor is. It was, he thinks, and the governor thinks, it was intended to make him, make the priesthood subservient to the governor. But with time in his job, he explains that he has come to believe the tenets of the faith, and he is vigorously defending them. And he's obviously a man who believes, and he believes in the rightness of what he's doing and the importance of what he's doing. And so he's inclined to help our heroes, even though it is at risk to himself. And I wouldn't exactly say his friendship, because they're obviously estranged over the years, but there's a nice little scene where he's talking to the governor, and it's like, what do you want from me? He tells him his story, kind of, and it's like, what do you want from me? I mean, tell me. It's very sincere. We use that word a lot, but in this case, it was a very sincere piece. The books. At one point, a priest is talking to Devon, and he's got this parchment out, which he's rolled up so that Devon can't see it. But he says, perhaps you can help me with this a little bit. And he peels a little bit back, and he reads him something about cooling systems and cross intercoolers.
It was clearly a tech manual.
It was totally talking about the machinery of the Ark. And he says, can you help me interpret this? And Devon, poor dumb farm boy, because he's been begging, let me see the books, perhaps we can help. Let me see the books, perhaps we can help. Let me see the books, perhaps we can help.
No, I can't help.
Nope, I'm afraid I can't. How it's embarrassing. And as an aside, I think this is a flaw with the Starlost. Not that there are any other flaws with the Starlost, but
well, this is a big one.
This is a big one. Our heroes are too technically incompetent.
Yeah, they're completely ignorant and totally unable in any way to be able to
deal with the crisis that they've got.
To be able to deal with the crisis, exactly. I mean, I understand that perhaps. I mean, you don't want to be able to solve your problem right off the bat, so maybe you do want to have them a little bit in the dark in terms of the science, but
they're too far down the food chain.
It's unless you start bringing in people who can actually go on their journey with them and help them out.
Or find people to do the journey for them because they're obviously not competent enough to do it.
No, or give someone that, or bring someone that maybe, not, as you just said, they're too far down the path. Get someone who's a little more advanced, maybe not so advanced that they can just read it. Oh, I know exactly what to do and I know where to go. Clearly you don't want that because then you have no show.
Well, for example, I could understand what they were saying. I couldn't, when he gave the gobbledygook,
right.
And it was, but at least I had a clue what air conditionings and intercoolers are. I couldn't make one work. I don't have the technical expertise, but at least I wouldn't be like listening to "For the flitty snurfdads duven." It's like, now don't get that, which is what Devon must be hearing.
Right, I'm sure to Devon. I mean,
it must be Vogon poetry to him.
Yeah, Vogon. I mean, I'm sure it sounded like all Greek to him.
Yeah.
But you're right. Have someone of, like you said, of our level that, I don't have the engineering know-how to be able to rectify the situation, but at least I understand the terminology that's being used.
Yeah. So I think that was, I understand why they did Devon's people in the religiously backwater community, but in retrospect, they're just too ignorant.
They're too backwards
to really get the job worked out. So he admits that he can't do anything to help them and blah, blah, blah. And later in the episode, he is given permission to see the sacred rite. Oh, and the Father Bob, or whatever his name was, the friar who was talked to him about that little bit, talks about how they spend years doing little sections of interpreting and trying to figure out the true meaning of the words, as they are equally ignorant of the meaning of these words, but they have put a religious connotation to them, and so they are just trying to figure out nonsense from what is nonsense to them. Mm-hmm. So it makes their whole effort completely, utterly futile and useless too. But they've been doing it their whole lives, and for generations. To it. So at the end, when they let Devon see the book, there's stacks of charts there, but they say, I need to see the book. And they bring one book out, one scroll, and they lay it down in front of him, and it's a logarithm table.
Yeah.
And he says, but this is just columns and figures. And they go, yes, and we don't know what it means. And
maybe, do you?
Do you understand this? And then he says, but earlier, you read me a passage. And he said, No, that's just our interpretation that we've worked out from years of study of these. Now, can you explain to me how a bunch of people could work out from a logarithm table stuff about air conditioning ducts and intercoolers? It was utterly absurd at that point. It was like...
It's nonsense. Absurd is putting it nicely. It's impossible.
Yes, it's just utterly insulting.
It's so far-reaching. It's insulting. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was beyond stupid.
Yeah. So that is it's almost like they should have shown him the logarithm tables first and then shown him the intercooler thing second, or it didn't. Anyway, even that wouldn't have worked. So that is at the very end. I'll tell you now. Our heroes survive to go on to another dome. Prior to that, though, what we still continue with the story of Rachel and the governor. When our heroes first get out, I thought this was a particularly inappropriate scene. When our heroes first escape by means of a towel flick and a bowl of fruit. They and
it's a bad towel flick too.
It's a bad towel flick. It's right in the face, though. I mean, right there, got him. And
it had absolutely no muscle behind it, and it was just like
yeah, I'm just gonna flip my towel in your face, and like it could have been a scene from like Police Squad.
Yeah. Where
they fling something at Drebin, like a toupee or something, and he's clutching it at his face, and it was that bad. So Devon and Garth go into the room where Rachel is wearing her wedding dress. Remember this scene? And he's like, what are you wearing? This is my wedding dress. It's like, well, get out of that wedding dress and put your regular clothes on. We got to get out of here. I don't want to take it off. I like this dress. Well, you can't wear that dress. That's, I put your clothes on. We got to get out of here. Maybe I don't want to go.
Can't I make my own decisions?
Can't I make my own decisions? Well, of course you can. Okay, then I want to go with you.
Okay, yeah. It's like all of a sudden she got very women's lib.
Yeah, I think she was supposed to be joking with him. I think it was like she was putting him on, but
totally inappropriate again. I mean, considering the situation.
Is this lack of acting?
Lack of good storytelling.
And that too, you know. Yeah, it was just like killed a little time, and we made Devin think about, you know, his right to Rachel. Does he have a right to Rachel, or is it?
It's like she's gotten, you know, now that okay, so she's lived this really repressed, quasi Amish type society, where the women were clearly subservient to the men. They've had just a couple of adventures, and now she's being treated like a goddess. So now she's going to get a backbone and start waving the women's lib flag.
Which in this case is she gets to wear a white frilly wedding dress around instead, which is about the opposite of symbolism of women's lib. You know, if you look at it that way. And you know, why can't she wear that one? Why does she have to go back into her other clothes? I mean, can't she have 2 pair of clothes? Just a thought, but
well, I imagine those clothes must get as kind
rank?
Of soiled after. Yeah, they do need to be washed.
That could be
having a spare set is a good idea.
Yeah, it's not that bad a thing. They could even have like a backpack or something where they could carry some food with them, or perhaps. But no, they don't have any. They have any bags? I don't have any bags. Nothing.
No.
Yeah.
The only item that's being carried is Garth's crossbow.
Which is bigger on the inside than the outside, and he keeps all that stuff in the quiver. So
everything's being hidden in there.
Yeah, it's in the quiver.
It's in the quiver, so that's where all the clothes are.
Yeah. The governor is... I thought this was the only interesting part of this story. I mean, Barry Morris's bit was interesting from the characterization, but they were trying to do something in this story, and one of the things was that the governor is being tempered by Rachel. He's falling in love with her.
Yeah.
And he has an interesting little speech where he talks about how her qualities temper him, and how he's always known who he was and what he did, but now he sees himself reflected in her eyes, and he sees himself for the man who really is. And it's not exactly that he regrets that, but that he grows a little bit from that, or at least he claims that he does.
I think he does.
I think at the end he does. Yes, at the end he does show that he has grown a little bit in this capacity. Well, of course, there's only one way that you can resolve a story like this. Devin has to challenge the governor in hand-to-hand mortal combat. Devin wins, he becomes the governor, kills the old governor, and then he can do whatever he wants. Devin loses, and like 22 men before him, he'll have his head knocked off with a thing that's...
A bat'leth.
Yeah, whatever the Vulcan thing is that they beat
I was
each other.
thinking of a Klingon sword.
Yeah, it's just it's a stick. it's a chunky stick at one end. And they have a fight, and of course the governor, who is a trained combatant...
you wouldn't know it from the fight choreography.
No, but he does for the most time have the upper hand with Devin, who just gets lucky.
Yes.
The governor overshoots his mark once, and Devin conks him hard on that back of the head. And of course he doesn't kill him, he spares him, and... which, you know, sits poorly in the craw of the governor. It's like, no, don't show me mercy.
Mercy disgraces
me. Yeah.
That was exactly, and I kept thinking, this is so Klingon. You know, it's like, is every part that John Colicos ever played been a Klingon?
Yeah, it was.
It was very, very weird.
So, but he wins. and they're allowed to leave. They're allowed to see the books, and that's the point where we see the log tables, and then they leave. And the implication is that the governor is going to die because
now there's other challengers.
All the other guys are like, well, that little drip beat him. I can take him up. And there's a whole bunch of guys lining up to fight the governor. And just as they're leaving, the governor shows up again. Ha ha! Beat all those guys. Thump, thump, thump chest. And, but then he lets them go. Because he says something, I could make you make a decision, something like that, but I know what your choice would be, looking pointedly at Devon, that Rachel would choose Devon instead of him, because of the longing looks they had to each other at the beginning of the fight. And, he says, I've lost to you twice today, looking at Devon. And, but through the quality of mercy that he's learned from just hanging around with Rachel, asking stupid questions, which is all she does. But what about love? Where are the women? What happened to the books? We burnt them. Oh, boo-hoo, you burnt the books. I mean, that's what we get out of Rachel for this whole thing.
Basically.
And yet, somehow, she's brought out his better angels.
Yeah.
Made him think about love, which is completely forbidden and supposedly something he's never experienced or anyone for the last 500 years. But he gets all tingly. And so he decides that in the future, perhaps he'll try to rule through mercy. What more can you say about this show other than it was just awful? Laughable?
Yeah. There's some little fine story points that I want to touch on. But that's basically it. The episode in a nutshell.
Fire away.
There was when I was watching the episode, there was one moment where I literally had to stop what I was doing. So I was multitasking, as I tend to do, and I had to stop what I was doing because I just began to laugh uncontrollably during the duel. And we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier about the governor's his court of dancers, his three dancing men.
Oh, okay.
That are very questionable.
I think I know what you're going to say, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, as the duel's going on, I mean, there's a crowd, and they've kind of made this somewhat irregular type circle around, and everybody's kind of standing, and they're kind of looking around. They want to get a good views to, with each blow and each strike that the governor or Devon might deliver. Except the three dancers, they're kind of like hopping around and they're jumping around, and all of a sudden at one point the governor kind of does this spin and just nails Devon in the stomach with one end of the stick, and simultaneously all three men cartwheels.
Yes.
For no reason whatsoever. I saw this and thought, okay, this is the best thing I've seen in this episode so far. And I don't mean that in a good way. It was truly very, very funny.
This is the best thing I saw in that episode, and I don't mean that in a good way.
No,
that is an unusual phrase.
Well, but that's the truth of it. It was the best thing, but I think it was obviously not intended.
They were his cheerleaders, yeah. I think
that's a good word for it.
Yeah.
His cheerleaders. I mean, it was. I mean, to start things off, like I said, you've got this choreography that is just horrible. You look at it and you cannot invest into it, and you kind of get the feeling that maybe whoever their stunt choreographer or their fight choreographer was, I mean, he must have been
bad?
Really, really poor, because I've seen other TV shows from that era, and it tends to be, especially in American shows or even some British shows, it's always been a lot better. I mean, it may not be 100% accurate, but at least you can believe some of the things that you see in there, and I could not believe any part of this at all.
Well, I think that if you look at shows from that same vintage in the United States, the ones that do a better job are on film. And the ones that are on videotape look poorer.
Good point.
Because you can edit the editing process is very different in the two, and you can improve it a lot. So I think this is more like real stage, theater stage fighting, and that's a different
very,
animal.
very good point. And with the videotape, it could make it look a lot more obviously bad.
And I'm not sure where we are in that days where, editing videotape at one point, like in early Doctor Who days, for example, editing videotape meant just that, cutting the tape and taping pieces together in much the way you would film. And, of course, you don't do a lot of that. You try to avoid that. You try to do mixing with multi-cameras if you've got it. You try to do whatever you can to avoid cuts like that to the tape.
But even then,
technologically, I'm not sure if that was true here, but...
Well, I think that's part of it, but I still kind of go back to getting good fight choreographers. I mean, the show that comes, I don't know why... The fight that's being done between the governor and Devon is done with these metal poles.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest comparison I can come up with is the old David Carradine TV show Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a scene in there where you actually see a couple of them fight with staffs. But at least the movement and the manner in which they would strike was entirely believable. The manner in which, like there's one moment where the governor, he just kept pounding straight on with his pole in a way that was completely and totally ridiculous. Not only did it look bad, but it was dumb fighting. I mean, he had an opportunity to deliver a really good killing blow, and instead he's just whacking away at Devon's staff, and it was bad fighting choreography. And I kind of wonder, maybe the two actors were just not left to their whims. You guys make something up and try and make it work.
I think you've hit on something else there too. I don't believe that there were any stuntmen in that scene.
No, there weren't any stuntmen, no.
So that was all stunt choreography done between a couple actors who don't know anything about beating each other with a stick. Yeah. So that makes a difference.
So you got this bad choreography, and then now you've got the cheerleading squad doing their cartwheels and their handstands, and it just made for it ruined the scene. But at the same time, it ruined it. But I laughed uncontrollably watching it at the same time.
I think that we make fun of it being a little gay, or I did perhaps. But I think they were supposed to.
Did too.
I think that they were going for medieval court jesters.
I thought the same thing too, but it was just badly done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I think that was the whole intent of them
exactly.
cartwheeling and all that stuff was that they should have the little. If they had the 3-pointed hat, it would have seemed very different.
It might have, but still, some of the things that they were doing were just like, give the guy some balls to juggle with, and okay, then you're fine.
Yeah.
But the things that they were doing.
Sing YMCA for us.
Well, at one point, I mean, they're switching back and forth between handstands and very slow modern dance. And it was just dreadful to watch, but I couldn't help but I couldn't tear myself away from it because it was just so god-awful bad.
Yeah. Okay, some other points?
The other thing that kind of got to me a little bit was at the end when our intrepid crew are being given a chance to finally look at the text with Shalif there in the temple. This is, of course, after Devon has won his challenge.
And Shalif don't like it either.
No, Shalif's not too keen on it. But and then, of course, then the scrolls are. I think it's scrolls. They're set up on this really really long table that's kind of
like a drafting table, sort of.
Yeah,
a long drafting table.
A long drafting table that's kind of at an angle. Yeah. Two sides at an angle. So you can have you can have priests on either side studying whatever it is they need to look at. And as Devin is busy looking at these logarithmic tables, you got Garth looking at something else. And I don't exactly remember the precise text that he read, but somehow it makes reference to a bridge of some sort. And Devin, out of the blue, without
yes,
I don't know,
it was terrible.
Where does he get this intuition? All of a sudden, there's a backup bridge. Oh.
It was a comment about the goddess's nether regions. There was something about a bridge and the goddess's nether regions of the ship, or something, or of the space. Because I remember the bit, I've got it written down here. There's comment about the goddess's nether regions. And of course they're talking about some obscure place in the Ark, not her.
Right.
But, and yes, and he suddenly puts it all together and he says, that must mean there's a backup bridge.
It looks like the Ark.
Ark? Now, there is another of our writings, which might help you find what you're looking for. Very ancient, passed down to us. It goes, and should it come to pass that the domain of the goddess whence comes all direction be consumed, then shall she seek out her new domain in the nethermost regions of her great Ark. Now, of course, we have never understood what that means.
Nethermost regions of her Ark. Domain. Dome.
Dome. Did you say all direction?
All direction, yes.
Of course. Bridge. We have seen the bridge. There is nothing there. Yes, but supposing there were a backup bridge.
Huh?
Huh? And there you have it. The dialogue we're talking about, as you can see. It's
pretty sad.
It's pretty sad.
It's pretty sad. And again, I did this head spin of a double take when Devin says, there's got to be a backup bridge. And my head just kind of spun around. What?
First off, does he know what a backup is?
How does he come up with backup bridge? Where does he get that? It's just not logical.
Did the guy say, the frozen scientist, engineer, communications guy, did he say something about a backup bridge?
I don't remember saying anything about a backup bridge.
It just said find technical diagrams and do something else. So it was. But now they have a quest, a real quest. I mean, they found the books and they were all burned, so now they have to find the backup bridge. So now we've got something to look for in the rest of the series.
Oh, God.
But isn't it interesting? I mean, they were sent off on a quest, episode 2, to find the books. No, wait. Yeah. In episode 1, they said, we'll find somebody who can help us. So what did they do? They found an engineer. They found a room full of engineers.
And then they're sent, and after thawing out this one communications engineer, they're sent on a second quest to find tech manuals.
And then when they find the place that had the tech manuals, they figure, hey, we got a backup bridge. We'll go get that.
Yeah.
It's not even like they had a clue what the show was going to be about.
No, I don't think they did. And based on every little bit of history, production history that I've read, and that we talked about when we did the podcast on the pilot, clearly they didn't have a clue. They had no real idea. I mean, yeah, they take some of Harlan Ellison's original story ideas and then just went they went insane with them. And then to take a story by Ursula K. Le Guin and do this, I have no words.
I think we beat Starlost to death again.
Again. Just stomped it into the ground. Wasn't hard to do.
Poor episode. And we will. That's an interesting question. We will be back next week. And next week, in fact, just 3 days from now, I think, will be the Doctor Who A Christmas Carol, the airing of it. And we are trying to get an episode out as soon as possible. But we are running into some logistical problems with getting that taken care of right away, so we'll
do it as soon as we possibly can.
We'll do it as soon as we possibly can. It is not for want of wanting. For want of trying. Not for want of... Boy, that phrase is just not going to work for me.
No, it isn't.
No. So, until next time, we hope you will join us again, then, on Fusion Patrol.
Cheers.
You've been listening to the Fusion Patrol podcast. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at feedback@fusionpatrol.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/fusionpatrol, or look for us on Facebook. Fusion Patrol is a production of Lone Locust Productions. Our theme music is Fight the Future by Amberwolf.